Jai Hind, good morning. Um, 4Gs are great improvisers. And our last speaker and Diana just gave me the opening lines today. So let me sum up. Uh, you know, trust a filmmaker to come up with amazing angles. So when he talked about the group and he talked about the audience over here, that kind of perspective comes only from a life which has been led deeply and well. What comes from the heart is the most authentic thing and is probably the deepest. And that's where Diana comes in. When she speaks from the heart, I know what Bloomingdale is all about. That is what grounds it. So I think these two perspectives actually sum up why you need to fly high and how you would fly high. Come up with amazing angles, come up with amazing perspectives, speak from the heart, speak from the depths of your heart, bring in that energy that she has, and you'll have the piece of the cake on your plate. I'm not going to give you motivations, because motivations you will forget by lunchtime or the first shot you have this evening. I'm going to talk about something deeper that you would carry, and something like Diana said, that I would like you to carry for the rest of your lives. Here in Bloomingdale, which, like she said, you're welcome to serve for the next 10 years, or anywhere else you might go, but carry it in your heart, because that is what ultimately makes life worthy of living. So, there are enough storytellers in the world, but there aren't enough storytellers who can deliver under pressure constantly. 100 billion industry globally, India growing 19% year on year, 2,500 crores and growing probably 2030 will have double the workforce, right? That's what the PR industry in India is all about and globally. An industry which is shaped by strategic thinking, an industry which is shaped by technology, growing rapidly. Almost every agency in the world is using AI. But you know what it is? That probably only 1 in 3 actually has a formalized policy for AI. So the winner clearly in the future is not going to be someone who's using technology rampantly or without mind. The winner is going to be someone who's using his skill set, his energies creatively. They've got a strategy, they've got mission clarity, and they know where they're heading. That's where the winner will come from. So, this anthem that played for you this morning, you know this guy comes from Somalia. That song he sang was actually an anthem for Somalia. Have any of you been to Somalia? It's like asking, have you ever been to Pakistan, right? No one goes to Pakistan for a holiday. Well, I've been to Somalia when I was serving the United Nations in the Horn of Africa. You can think of the worst place in India, and probably Somalia is 10 times worse. Famine, hunger, years of civil unrest, no governance, no water to drink, 500 warlords running amok, everyone shooting at everyone. Nothing exists in that country, didn't at that point of time. Today there is some semblance of authority. This boy grows from there, runs away from the civil war, moves to New York and then to Toronto in Canada, and becomes the biggest rapper that Africa has ever produced because of passion and hunger. It's the hunger that drove him, not the hunger of the stomach, but the hunger to achieve, the passion to achieve. Gen Z, right? Guys who have no motivation, guys who are self-centric, who are not rooted, They don't have any discipline. Self-centered. There's no order. Someone gets up at 12, someone sleeps at 12. मतलब generation है कि क्या है? But there is something that you guys have that someone at my age doesn't have. You have the courage of conviction. You have a passion. You hate authority, right? You hate authority. But you respect authentic authority. You can smell fakeness a mile away. We gulp it. That's what this generation is all about. And today I'm going to talk to you about a generation which had probably the similar values, which probably was in the same age group or probably a little younger than what you are today. But they carried the same passion, the same hunger, and the same truthfulness. Today I'm going to talk to you about something a little more serious than what you've probably experienced in the little lives that you've led. I'm going to talk to you about Kargil. So, there is always this silence before danger when you're walking into an operation. There is this thump in your head. There's a pulse which grows. The rifle feels colder. And it's the silence of danger. It's not a good kind of a silence. It's a very horrible kind of a silence, especially if you're commanding troops and you've got men with you. Because there's always this fear, what if I fail? What if I fail? And the second part comes, which is even more heavier and deeper, is who will pay the price of my failure? That's the weight of command that you carry as a young officer when you're going into operations. And that is a very, very difficult weight to carry on your shoulders. As a young officer, I have carried the body of a man to his village. I was 21 years old. And I've laid that body in front of his father. It's a tough job to do. Leading him into battle, leading him into operations was easy. Facing his old parents was something that kind of weight I'll probably carry for the rest of my life. So, I'm going to talk to you about this place. Have you ever seen this or heard of this? Or know what this is? This is Tiger Hill. Tiger Hill was captured by 18 Grenadiers. I am from the Grenadiers. I commanded the 3rd Grenadiers. It's a peak so lofty that your neck cranes and pains even when you look at it, leave alone climb it. 18 Grenadiers captured it. And I'll talk a little about how the capture happened. But I'll talk to you about something else in relation to this peak. When 18 Grenadiers captured this peak, it broke the will of the Pakistan army, and that's when they decided that Kargil is over. This changed the tide of the war. But look at this peak. Look at the sheer height of this peak and how difficult it is to even climb, even during day. This was during winters, under enemy fire, when everything is being thrown at you. I was an instructor in the Indian Military Academy, and I had these cadets with me. Same kind of cadets as what is thrown at you. And we used to have these papers, and I was an instructor then, so people used to talk. The quality of cadets is not good. वो बात नहीं है इनमें. Motivation नहीं है, self-centered हैं. They don't have the right pedigree. Everything that was against it. I was there in the Indian Military Academy when these batches were passing out. 95 to 97. I don't think a lot of you were even born then. So they passed out during my time. And then Kargil happened. And it exploded in the face of India. And for every peak that we captured, for every post that was won, we lost a young officer. because they led every fight. The same generation, the same set of officers whom they said doesn't have the pedigree. The same set of officers whom they said they don't have the gurda in them. They don't have the blood boiling in them. They don't have the dedication or the motivation. These guys led operations and died, winning peak after peak, winning post after post. It was probably the most bloody battle that the world has ever seen. The most high-powered, high-energy battle that has been recorded in modern times. I'll tell you a story of a boy called Sachin Nimbalkar. He was my cadet. He went on to win the Veer Chakra in 18 Grenadiers. I forced him into coming into the Grenadiers. He didn't want to come into Grenadiers. I said, you will come into Grenadiers. A boy from a small village in Maharashtra, Sachin Anandrao Nimbalkar. His parents, his father was a farmer. When they went on to capture Tiger Hill, for 3 days he was stuck behind a boulder with 18 of his men. 3 days they couldn't move forward. And there were these Pakistanis on top who were firing down on him with machine guns. There was a body of an officer called Gautam Adhikari, which was lying over there, and his telephone operator. And this guy was stuck behind the rock. That's when their second in command, Colonel Vishwanathan, decided to lead an attack to relieve them. He went up and he got killed himself. So his body was also lying there. And those guys told him, कि साहब आप नीचे चले जाओ, हम आपको इनकी बॉडी लेने नहीं देंगे. And he yells back, साले मैं उनकी बॉडी नहीं, मैं तेरी बॉडी लेने आया हूं. That's the kind of blood and that's the kind of motivation these guys had. This is a boy who was with him. They had been to operations. He must have been about 24, 25, sorry. That boy was about 19 years old. He died during the operations. He stormed a bunker and he got hit in the chest by a machine gun. They had been together in Kashmir before that, doing operations together. They had a bonding. We've got something called a buddy in the army, where this guy works with you all the time. So he was his buddy for about 8-9 months, and they're very, very close. The boy dies. Sachin was 25 years old. This boy was 19. How old are most of you? How old are you? What's your average age? 26, 27, 28? How many 25? So Sachin was 25. And when they captured the peak, an orange juice was sent up from the base, some packed orange juice which reached them. And Sachin was sipping that orange juice, and around him people were celebrating. He sat quietly and he took an oath. He says, no matter where life takes me, I'll visit Uday's family once a year. I'll stand with his parents. I'll be the son that they lost. 27 years. He's not missed a day. He's got posted foreign, he's had foreign postings, he's been an instructor, he's not missed a day. 25 years he's taken on that responsibility. I'm talking about a story much beyond the battle. He's been there for that family, for the 2 sisters that got married. He's been with that family for every big and small occasion that happened. He's built their house. He was there when the mother died. She was in hospital, he reached, and she died after that. That's the kind of responsibility a 25-year-old takes. The village is Shamachak, very different from Maharashtra, miles away. No commitment, there's nothing on paper. But there's a relationship of the blood and the spirit. He's kept to their life. So I come to the first principle, and what I talked about, mission clarity. That's the oxygen. Mission clarity is the oxygen. You know, if you want to fly high, you have to define the mission in one sentence. The youngest of you has to define that mission. If you don't have a mission, or if you can't define the mission, it's like if I cross three of you in the corridor outside and ask you what your mission is, and three of you tell me three different things, then you're departments, you're not a unit. And departments don't win wars and battles. It's units which win wars and battles. You might fly fast, okay? But you'll fly in different directions. You won't fly in the same direction. Mission clarity is very important. I'll tell you something about mission clarity. This was the Battle of DograI, 1965. 3 Jat troops, Haryana, crude as hell. Desmond Haig was an Anglo-Indian commanding officer. In the army, you speak the language of the troops. So he was an Anglo officer, but he could speak clipped Haryanvi very fluently. 6 September, 3 Jat is told to go and capture DograI. DograI was short of Lahore. If you go and see it on the map, you'll find it. They were told to go and capture DograI. 1965, we had a war with Pakistan. Difficult battle. 3 Jat went and captured DograI. They had 60 people dead in that war. 60, not a small number. Somehow reinforcements couldn't reach, bad planning. Reinforcements were less. 3 days they held on to DograI, 3 days. There was no logistics coming up, no supplies coming up, no reinforcements coming up. They were getting slaughtered over there. Finally, they were told, pull back of DograI. Colonel Haig yelled back. He said, I'm not leaving DograI. I've captured it after 60 of my boys have died. They said, you have to come back. You will have 300 dead. There's no way you can hold on to DograI. Under a lot of pressure, he told his battalion, let's move back. They vacated DograI. For a commanding officer, that's a painful thing. You know, you capture something, you lost men, you motivated men to go and capture something, and then you say you have to vacate it because people can't come to help you and reinforce you. He comes back. The Indian Army, a couple of days later, on the 20th of September, they say you have to go and capture DograI all over again because it's very, very critical to us. You guys, crib, ये तो हमको पहले बताना था, दोबारा बता रहे हो, मैंने पहले बोला था, correct? I said the same thing, that time you overruled me, now you're telling me to do the same thing. 21st September, he's told, go and capture DograI all over again. He gathers his battalion, he tells them, by nightfall, 3 Jat will be in DograI, dead or alive, I want you there. And then he asks in his clipped Haryanvi, Chore, aaj raat ne 3 Jat kit rahegi? And the battalion goes, DograI, DograI, DograI. And he again calls back and he says, Susre, agar CEO saab ne goli lagi, to kya karoge? And a young soldier gets up and he says, Saab, agar CEO saab ne goli lagi na, to peeth pe tanenge par rukhenge DograI. That is mission clarity. That the youngest soldier in the battalion knows what has to be done. He says, if the commanding officer is shot dead, I will carry his body on my back but I will stop only at Dogarai. That night, 3 Jat captured Dogarai. They won 3 Mahavir Chakras, 4 Veer Chakras, and 7 Sena medals all in one night. And they captured Dogarai twice, not once. Mission clarity. That's the kind of mission clarity you guys need to have. That's the kind of cohesiveness that you need to have. Not as departments, but as one unit. Principle 2, sorry. So like I said, no sloganeering. It's not slogans, it's a mission. Remember that. Discipline beats motivation. He kept talking about it, she talked about it. You feel the army runs on bravery. You feel the army runs on inspiration. It runs on systems. Drills, SOPs, repetition, day in and day out. I still remember, when I was in NDA and then in IMA, we used to be taught as a cadet, dash, down, crawl, fire, dash. I can remember it 50 years even today. It is so ingrained in my head. Because when pressure hits, the brain freezes, and it's only the habits that survive, nothing else. So, as a young officer, we've learned how to strip a machine gun and assemble it back in 30 seconds blindfolded, because we expected to do that. Suppose there's a failure in battle and it's dark, how do you do that? So I used to be able to strip it and assemble it back. And it comes from muscle memory. When we were in operations in Kashmir and you had to do a room entry drill, you're not speaking to each other. You know exactly what the other guy is thinking. I'll tell you a situation where we were in Sopur and we were doing this room entry, and there were these militants in this village. We had separated out, we had cleaned up the village and put the villagers outside, and then we were doing a house-to-house clearing drill. And we used to divide the village into segments, and one group would search one segment, the second group would search the second segment. And we would take turns to enter the room because, you face danger. So these two kind of change over after a point of time. So we had entered a house and there were these 3 rooms. The first room, the first guy went in and 3 of us stood outside guarding. The second room, the second guy went in. The third room, it was my chance to go in. And I touched the door. And the moment I touched the door, I felt the hair on my nape go up. Something told me there's danger inside. It comes. It's a very natural instinct. It comes to all of us. A lot of you would have stood on the railway station or at a bus stop at a public place and found 50 eyes staring at you, but there's one eye which you feel uncomfortable about, right? That's gut feel. We kill it as we grow up. It's very, very strong when we are kids, but then it's like going to buy a dress and liking the first thing that you see and you say, it's not so easy, let me try a few more. And you visit 50 other shops and you pick up something trashy and you go back home and say, that's the first thing that I saw, that's what I liked. But you don't trust your instincts. So here, coming back to the story, I touched the door and the hair on my nape stood up. And we always had this human rights issue because we couldn't end up killing an innocent or a local. It had to be someone who had a weapon, who was firing back. And I just glanced at my buddy who was on the left. He glanced at me. No word spoken. No word spoken. We both fired simultaneously. There could have been anyone in the room. There could have been a kid in the room. There could have been a woman in the room. There was an Afghan sitting and he was putting his AK-47 down. We fired a fraction of a second faster than he did. My first 2 bullets got embedded in the door, in the thick door, in the wood. This boy who was with me, one of his bullets flew past him, entered his cap and went off. He carried that cap for the rest of his life and he was there. There's a hole over there. Missed his head by a millimeter. What I was getting to you was repetition. What I was telling you about is sixth sense. What I was telling you about is practice. That doesn't come just because you just thought of one day, like he said, and it happened. It doesn't happen like that. You practice and you practice and you practice till it becomes second nature, till I know what you're thinking. It's like in a marriage. The wife just has to look at the husband, and the husband knows what the hell she's thinking, right? Correct? That's how it is. That's the kind of relationship you have with your man. You're not married to him, but you're almost married to him. And that's the kind of discipline I'm talking about that you guys need to have. Another two examples. You know, when I talked about the Tiger Hill and how they captured it, Sachin was telling me, he came to me after the capture, much after Kargil happened. We spent 2 days together. He came home, stayed with me. We had a good few drunken evenings together. We were colleagues then, no longer instructor and cadet. And he said, sir, you know, when we were climbing up, there was this small goat track on which people were climbing up. The first attacks failed, and there were casualties coming down. And you know who was passing the casualties down? The second load of people who were climbing up, because there was no other way the casualties could come down. So there were guys going in for the attack and passing down the casualties in their own hand. They knew what was on top. And yet they were climbing to capture Tiger Hill. That kind of fervor comes from discipline. It's no longer about inspiration. It's not inspiring when you know you're going to die. It's not inspiring. There's a throb in your head. Your heart is breaking open, but your regimental spirit, your colleagues, the guy who's in front of you, the guy who's behind you, and your internal discipline and the discipline of the battalion is what makes you stand there and not run. Charge of the Light Brigade. I don't know how many of you have heard of this. This goes back, I picked this up because it's a very romantic story. 1854, probably the bravest cavalry charge in the history of the world. 600 horsemen, cavalrymen, charged against Prussian guns. There's a poem by Lord Alfred Tennyson, half a league, into the valley of death rode the 600. 600 horses and cavalrymen rode against Prussian Cossack guns and got butchered. But they kept riding through into that valley because they were ordered to do so. Look up that poem. One of the survivors of this charge was a gentleman called Lieutenant Alexander Dunn, one of the first Victoria Crosses in the world. That Victoria Cross was made from the melted iron of the Prussian guns. And one of the first Victoria Crosses was given to him. He later on became a colonel and was part of a campaign which took place in Abyssinia, Ethiopia, where I was there in the United Nations, and I visited that grave. And that's how I got connected to the Charge of the Light Brigade. Amazing story. Discipline under fire. You know, be passionate. I'm not saying don't be passionate, but passion is unreliable. At 3 a.m. in the morning in Siachen, no one is passionate. You still get up and do that patrol. And you'd ask me, why at 3 a.m., what is unearthly hour, why not at 11 when you guys wake up? Because even a half a degree change in the snow would cause an avalanche. So the patrol has to be done at a time when the weather is freezing, when there is no change in temperature. It's not easy. It's not easy. But it's the discipline that kicks in, and you have to get up whether you like it or not. Discipline is always stronger than emotion. Emotion you can wash away, right? Mera mood nahi kar raha hai. That never happens. You don't do it because mood nahi kar raha hai. It has to bloody well happen. That's how my post was when I was a 21-year-old in Siachen. That's one of the summer patrols, a winter patrol, that's a winter patrol. This, of course, is yeah. So that, of course, is a beacon. That yellow thing is a beacon. That gives you an avalanche signal when you get buried. Anyway, in your world, how does the crisis look? A client calls, journalists will push, competitors will attack, a narrative will explode on social media. In that moment, your culture will not be tested by your words, it will be tested by your reflexes. So what you need to do is build those reflexes that, like we build reactions to fire. You know, when I get into a real crisis situation, I have this outer body experience. I go numb. And I have looked at myself a number of times. I go numb. And I see myself from far and I go mechanical. My mind freezes, I don't think, I start acting mechanically. I'll tell you about Imagicaa. When I was in Imagicaa, and that time I hadn't become the CEO, I was still the COO, and we had an accident. I don't know if any of you remember. There was an accident. A lot of people wouldn't speak of something like this. I'm speaking about it. This accident happened not because of a ride failure. There was a metallurgy failure. It was an Italian ride. The metal kind of gave way, and one of the carts of a small roller coaster tilted. And because of the tilt, one girl hit her chin and the mother got hit on the head. Nothing major, a couple of stitches. But because it was tilted, they had got stuck, because there's no way a roller coaster can be stopped en route. It can't be braked. It works on gravity. Anyway, the point I'm trying to make is I was the only one in the park at that point of time. That time, the MD, the CEO, there was an IAP happening, the International Association of Amusement Parks. They were here in Goregaon Park. Everyone was out. I was the only one. And I went into it mechanically. There were 3,000 people in the park, shift the people out, isolated the ride, put in rescue services. At that point of time, we hadn't catered for ladders, so I had to get ladders, put them down. Within minutes, there were reporters on the gate. There were 3,000 children in the park. The parents had started panicking. WhatsApp had started moving. So I did what I had to do physically, but there was something else unfolding. And that unfolding was the crisis management that happens, which a lot of you would have faced, but a lot of us still don't practice. That was the first time when I called back, and Manmohan Shetty, my boss, was the MD, and I called him and told him, so this is what happened. He says, okay, get hold of it. And I said, we need to kind of communicate. So he said, okay. And then he spoke to the board, and the board had all 65, 70-year-old average age. And they said, wait, not a word out. I said, there are 3,000 people in the park. They've seen what is happening. There are reporters at the gate. There's someone standing on the main road. They said, not a word out. Let's first see what has to be done. So they sat together, and by 8:39, they made out a press release which was sent to the PR agency. The PR agency said कि इसमें comma इधर लगाओ, इधर and इधर लगाओ, इधर stop लगाओ, ये word ठीक नहीं है, वापस आए. It kept going up. Couple of guys had slept by then, and they said इसको कल ना मीडिया में भेज देंगे, वो कर देंगे, print कर देंगे paper में. By that time, half the world had stopped reading newspapers. We didn't know there was a world exploding outside. Those messages weren't coming to us, but were being circulated all over. Insta wasn't so big back then, it was 2016. But things had started exploding between parents, and that's when I realized how bad it can get. By morning, we had something like this all over. So this was incidentally my colleague, Vinod Krishnan. You can see his bald head. The photograph was taken by one of my security guys, which kindly just leaked out, I don't know how. That's the second photograph on top, the rescue happening. By morning, you had these kind of articles coming out. And we hadn't even responded because we were concerned कि कहीं comma extra था या and कहाँ stop, full stop कहाँ था. We didn't know how to deal with the social media. Because every person in the park was a citizen reporter. They were taking photographs and posting it. The news channels picked up those WhatsApp messages. Those WhatsApp messages got morphed and people started posting messages कि 40 people dead in Imagicaa. We had to deal with a narrative which kind of put the egg on our face. We didn't know how to deal with it. And we were still using traditional methods. कि मीडिया रिपोर्ट बनाते हैं, भेजते हैं, करेगा 8-9 years our cycle. It didn't work like that. It didn't work. So after all this happened, then we got into a huddle and I told them, I said, this is how you need to communicate. You need to put the communication out. You need to get your narrative first before those guys spoil the narrative. Because now you're only responding and you're only cleaning up what they are saying and no one is listening to you, right? Who's listening to the rejoinders after that? So, muscle memory, repetition, SOP, processes, drills, and you will face this every day. And people still haven't realized this. You can see this in half a dozen things that are happening even today. The Epstein files, the CEO getting caught attending a music festival with the HR head, JP Morgan. I mean, we still haven't learned. How are they responding? Have you even seen one response coming out maturely and strategically and fast? No. The world still hasn't learned. The best PR agencies in the world haven't learned, even today. This, I'm talking about something that happened 9 years back. Because people fail to do the small thing. The small disciplines is what is missing. The big jargon is okay, but the battle is fought here. So, writing standards, response times, escalation protocols, review loops, crisis rehearsals, communications, you got to get this right. Rest you will get right. This no one gets right. Your battlefield is perception, narrative. Your enemy is time, right? One wrong line in a press release, one wrong tweet, one wrong delay, and the damage. I don't want to complete that sentence. So I'll tell you something. Have you ever seen this photograph? How many of you have seen this? What I'm trying to tell you is, when shit hits the ceiling, is the junior most who's there. Your CEO, your MDs, your VPs, no one is around. No one is around. That's what crisis is all about. And that's why the junior most needs to know how to act. There is no time to explain कि ऐसे करो बेटा, ऐसे करना है. You will probably be responding in seconds. So what happened was 2016 or 17, there were elections happening in Kashmir. There was this young officer called Lieutenant Gogai. He was there with his men, and there was a crowd of 3,000 people who gathered around them, and they started pelting stones and started snatching weapons. And it was dangerous because if he didn't respond, and if he allowed the crowd to kind of do what they wanted, they would snatch the weapons away, or probably worse, the men would die, they would get lynched, get torn apart. And the communication was not there. He was all alone. He didn't know what to do. So he had the basic order that he had to open fire. But there was a crowd of 3,000 people, and a lot of them were women. And what would he do? And they were closing on to him. There was someone trying to snatch weapons. There was a vehicle which had been burned down, which was behind him. The crowd was closing in from all sides. So what did he do? He did the best thing that he could at that point of time, and amazing presence of mind. He caught hold of the leader, put him on the bonnet, tied him up, and he said, "Ab maro patthar." And he moved there were ballot boxes behind, and he moved the convoy through the crowd. The media exploded, human rights, parliament, everyone. Ye kya kar diya? How can you put an innocent over there? This guy is one of the stone pelters. The army stood by him and they said, no, he just did the right thing. Do you want 3,000 people dead or you want 15 soldiers dead? What do you want? What I'm talking about is the response time that you would get and your presence of mind and how you need to respond. It will always be out of context. You plan for 5 things, you'll have to respond in some other way which you had never planned for. But you will come to that and you will come to a mature decision only if you've been through 5 trainings, 5 rehearsals. Then you will know, okay, this doesn't work, so what will work? And you will be the only one taking that decision. There will be no one holding your hand. You will be able to chat GP it or Google it or anything else. The decision rests solely on you. So learn it, make it a muscle memory. When you have the time, ask questions, go through it, repeat, work, and it'll hold you in good stead for the rest of your life. But somewhere, one day, you will encounter something like this. I can guarantee you that in your profession, in your job. So, different terrains, same presence. Because once the crisis begins, you don't get time to prepare. You only get time to reveal what you already are. And it is in seconds. It's not even in hours. Ownership. When you talk about missions, mission, yes, all of you know what the mission is all about by now. But how many of you own it? How many of you actually feel this is my mission? I need to carry this through. And I'm not talking about someone senior, I'm talking about the junior most person present in this room. An intern who's joined probably 10 days back. Do you own that mission? I'll tell you a story. In Kashmir, we were in operations. One of my vehicles had got ambushed. Those guys were in an ambush. There was firing all happening from all sides. I happened to be close by. We parked our vehicles about 2 kilometers away. We debussed from the vehicle and we started running to the place where the ambush was happening because we couldn't carry the vehicle, otherwise we would have got caught. So as a colonel, I used to be wearing this, you wear this collar dog, these red color things on your collars. So we had a major who was with me, and when we were running up, I had my quick reaction team, we were 10, 15 people, and we were just trying to go up and help those guys who were already caught in the ambush. So he told me, he said, sir, remove these collar tags because what happens is the militants over there would pick up the senior most officer and they would have a casualty, right? So it would give them more coverage. So he said, remove your collar dogs or you will get shot because we are running out in the open. I said, okay. And we still kept running because the reports coming and we were all caught up. So after some time, he again reminded me, he said, sir, I told you, remove your collar dogs. Next to me was a cook. We call these guys tradesmen in the army. So they were cook. He was a cook. And he was also carrying a weapon because they are also combatants. The cook is the lowermost hierarchy that you can find in the food chain, right? He's not a soldier, he's a cook. He tells me, he said, Saab, जो मेजर साहब बोल रहे हैं ना वो सही है. But आज आप कॉलर डॉग मत उतारना. Because जवानों को पता चलना चाहिए कि आप डरे नहीं हो और हम सब डरे नहीं हैं और ये जवाब उनको देना है हमने. This is a cook advising a commanding officer. Ownership. That's what his ownership is all about. When even the junior most knows what the mission is and he owns the mission. It's not the commanding officer's mission. It's not a major's mission. Even the cook knows it's my mission. That's the kind of clarity that you guys need to have when you work. Leadership and presence. Rank gives you responsibility. Leadership is earned. It doesn't give you leadership. Rank never gives you leadership. Loyalty always comes from presence. It never comes from the badges that you wear, from how exalted you are. never comes from that. And leadership is not only about people here in the front row. Leadership is also there. As a junior most, even you will display leadership at a point of time in the designation that you are. So if you escape behind PowerPoints and behind I told you and you told this, it doesn't work. Because leadership is all about presence, of being there, of leading. Whether you are being led or you are in a group, but you're still a leader at any point of time, in whichever point you are there in that group, whatever designation. I'll tell you another story. When things go wrong, people will watch the leader, right? They always look up to the leader. In the army, men will follow a young officer to death because they believe he's their leader and they will follow him, not because he's ordered them. So we were in Siachen, and this is when I was in Siachen as a young officer, 19,000 feet. We were in Siachen and we had this post where you had to come up along a track which was being observed by the Pakistanis. And every time you came up, they would start firing. And they used to do these air bursts, artillery shells. And because there was snow and the artillery shells has a nose impact fuse. So when it hits the ground, the fuse kind of triggers the round to explode. In Siachen, because the snow, they didn't have nose impact fuses, they had something called timers. So the artillery shell would come up at a point of time and then burst in the air. So we were here and we had a relief happening, and there was another unit which was replacing us. And we should do this movement during hours of darkness at night when it was pitch dark so the Pakis couldn't see. On this particular night, I was standing there, it was about 2:30 in the night, and some of my boys had gone down to bring this group up, and as they entered the valley, the cloud cover cleared and the moon came up, and it was like a searchlight, and the entire valley got white, and the air burst started. And these boys all fell onto the ground, and I had someone who had hit his back. There was a red sprout fountain coming out of his spine. There's someone who had lost a leg, and I said, I can't watch men dying before me. It was not an act of bravado or bravery or courage, but I just couldn't have faced myself for the rest of my life. So I went into my hut and I wore my crampons. There are these angled stuff that you wear on your shoes so that you don't slip. And I decided that I'll go down and I'll kick those buggers and pull them up. And there was this Havaldar standing next to me, and he said, Saab, मैं आपको अकेला नहीं जाने दूंगा. अगर आप जाओगे तो मैं आपके साथ जाऊंगा. I don't have a brother, but if I had a brother, probably even he wouldn't have said that to me. It was like I saw God that day, in that moment. I took a fraction of a second probably, and I said, I must savor this moment for the rest of my life, because no amount of richness or wealth or designation will ever give me something so beautiful. A man ready to die for you. I was young, I wasn't married. My father was an army officer. This guy had a family at home, old parents, children, everyone dependent on him, 40 years old, and he's ready to die for you, with you. Presence. That's of course how it looked from my post. That's a Diwali photograph. So now where are you guys? You're the mid-success trap, I guess. Right? The army can't afford softness, like I told you. The enemy does not care about your past. 1965, 1971, Kargil, Sindoor, doesn't matter. What matters is what you're going to do in the next war. How are you going to fight it? Are you going to come out a winner or are you going to come out a loser? Your successes don't matter. So we continue to prepare for war every day. Every day, every minute, Today, the army, which you see is not doing anything, is actually preparing for war. And that's how you come up tops. Your competitors don't care about your legacy. They don't care about your last campaign. It's how you will deliver next. So 12 years, no investors, you build this, you have the DNA, right? You have the DNA. Risk is not the failure. Risk is becoming comfortable at this good altitude. And good altitude is like the elephant's graveyard. You know, the elephants go to die in a graveyard. So good altitude like that, when ambition dies, the hunger dies, you stop asking the right questions, you start protecting a reputation. I'll tell you an incident again about Nagaland, ambush. I was there as a young officer. I was doing a course. I wasn't really involved in this. This happened in Mon. That's a Konyak Naga from the Mon district. There were 15 tribes in Nagaland, and Mon has is one of the most backward regions of Nagaland. So he's a Konyak Naga, odd headhunters. This place is similar to how the ambush took place. I'm sorry about it looked okay on my laptop, it looks very small over here. So what happened was that in Nagaland at that point of time, used to have something called the road opening party. So the convoys used to move, but because of ambushes taking place and because it was a hostile country, the army used to send out in the morning at 2 o'clock. Every time, twice a week, the convoy used to move, carrying troops, going on leave, logistics, all that. So they used to send these troops out on the road, who would go and physically clear the road. So there were sections given for various people that this is your responsibility. You had to go and clear that section, make sure there are no IEDs, improvised explosive devices. There's no one sitting on an ambush over there. So the road is cleared. By 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock, the road, all okay would be given. Over 300 kilometers, road cleared, people would be picketed over there. And that's when the convoy would be told to move, and the convoy would move. Repetition, like someone said, boring, right? Happens every day. रोज उठ के जाते हो 3 बजे, वहाँ जाके बैठते हो, इलाका देखते हो, everything okay, sit there, nothing happening, 1 month, 2 months, 3 months, 4 months, every day it is happening. Repetition sets in, sluggishness sets in. At some point of time, your guard starts lowering. You say, routine hai yaar, kuch nahi hota, everything will be okay. You have got your packed breakfast, you go and sit, have a little snooze, have a smoke. There was a stretch of road under construction, and it was being tarmacked. There were a set of drums. And every day the drums would move a little closer. Every day the drums would move a little closer. No one saw those drums moving closer, because from here to here, from here to here, it was routine. You had stopped seeing things. One day, as the convoy was coming, first couple of months, probably they must have seen the drums. किसी में, डांबर था, किसी में नहीं था. कौन सा खाली था, कौन सा नहीं, they stopped checking. And there was someone watching what they were doing. Over 5 months they watched them, 5 months. One day, and that drum was kept there for, I think, about 3 weeks, right next to the road. No one saw that. As the first vehicle approached, there was one guy who got up from inside the drum, took a shot, shot the driver, point blank. The second shot killed the co-driver, who was an officer. The vehicle turned, hit the roadside. Suddenly troops jumped down. There's a machine gun which opened from the right. People started firing. There's a machine gun which opened from the left. This guy who was there, single guy, just turned over. The drum slid into a nala. It rolled. He was inside the drum, reached the nala and ran away. No one captured. 5 people dead. Complacency. Repeated tasks. So, in the army, comfort kills alertness. In your job, comfort kills excellence. You can't afford to be comfortable. Day in and day out, you have to push yourself. And where does that push come from? It comes from discipline. It comes from discipline. Routine tasks look so stagnant, look so boring. But that's where discipline kicks in. Cost of altitude is not free. You want to fly? Yes. The principles are the same, okay? The next level always demands sacrifice. If you want world-class performance, you must accept world-class discomfort. It doesn't come easy. Captain Kangaroos, Nimbu Saab, his friends, his troops used to call him. Battle of Tololing, 28 June 1999, 25 years old. He was told to clear. This was another big peak which was captured during Kargil. 13 Jackarif. They were stuck. He was told to clear an LMG. He couldn't reach that LMG because you couldn't reach, they were firing. He had to go from a rear approach. It was a rock climb at almost 16,000 feet, minus 10 degrees centigrade. He abandoned his shoes and his gloves and he climbed barefooted and without gloves on frozen rocks at 16,000 feet, cost of altitude. He was bleeding by the time he reached on top. The team followed him, but he led the team. He died in this assault. They captured the LMG post. They cleared another LMG post. The first Mahavir Chakra from Nagaland. Cost of altitude. It's not how high you want to fly, but what are you willing to give up for it? That's the Battle of Tololing happening. And those are the kind of knife edge, razor sharp slopes that you would find. That's an actual photograph. Another great story of Tololing. I don't know how many of you know this gentleman. Captain Vikram Batra was my cadet, again, IMA, my battalion. I visited a house in Palampur. He went on to capture .5140. Nimbu climbed up this, died. Second officer died. He went on to capture 5140. He got injured very badly, but he captured it. Came back. He was promoted to captain. The chief of the army staff that time, General Ved Malik, called him up personally. He was interviewed. You know who interviewed him? Who interviewed him? Barkha Dutt. She interviewed him. He had a war cry, "Ye dil mange more," and that was his success cry. They captured 13 Rajrev, captured Tololing. Again, major feature got captured. This was Tiger Hill. This is not working. I don't know how this works. No. I want this red dot coming up. The pointer. Pointer doesn't work? No. Okay. So this was Tololing. This was Tiger Hill over here. And then they had to capture this feature, 4875 in the Mashko Valley. 2 companies launched, got stuck. There was a flat top. There was a gentleman called Captain, this is gone, Captain Nagappa. He was holding on to that feature. The enemies attacked. He held on. He got injured. Vikram Batra was in the base. Vikram Batra, it had been about 10 days between that fight and this fight. Because of his injuries, he had fever. He was in his sleeping bag. He heard 2 of the companies on top, 2 majors, this captain stuck. He volunteered. He said, "I'll go up." So the CEO that time, Colonel Joshi then said that, you're sick, you got fever, you can't go, you are injured. He said, "I will go up." He gathered a team, climbed up. En route, there was a LMG which the enemy was using, a machine gun, which was firing on the troops. He cleared that LMG. There was another LMG behind. He cleared that LMG. He, I think, killed about 6-7 people. He climbed up further. There was another enemy location. He cleared that. Finally, he reached on top, and he was told to go a little beyond. And there was a Sangad wall, a rock wall. There was enemy behind that. By this time, it was daylight. By this time, it was somewhere over here. This is the place that he actually captured. By this time, it was daylight. But he knew he had to clear it because those guys were refusing to let any of the people sit over here. He charged. He got injured. He killed another 6 guys. That's when one of his men got injured. And they were still firing. Dil mange more. He got a Paramveer Chakra for it. He was evacuating this guy when a sniper got him in the chest. As he fell, a rocket launcher was hit, which hit his head. A rocket launcher, an RPG round, and he died. This place is now called the Batra Top. Price of altitude. So like I said, that's the price of altitude. That's the book I wrote, Sudhir Walia. Another great story. 1999, he led the last attack in Kargil on a place called the Zulu Peak. Captured it, lived through it. He was the kind of a guy who once he was chasing militants, and there were 3 militants. They had ambushed. They ambushed these guys. 1 guy was shot. 2 guys escaped through the jungle. He ran after them. The troops were behind. He ran alone. He ran behind them. He shot 1 guy. The second guy entered a cave, a small rock cave he entered. Without thinking about anything, Sudhir entered that cave. Can you imagine? There's a militant inside with a weapon. He enters that cave. The cave was narrow. He couldn't get up. So his weapon was on the ground. That other guy was already in. He was lifting his weapon up. Sudhir couldn't lift his weapon because there was rocks. He looked at him, and the strength in his face, the fierceness in his eyes, the anger that he saw melted that guy. He said, "Rak, hatyar rak lijiye." And he looked at him with that anger. That guy actually trembled and he kept the weapon down. He caught him by the scruff and dragged him out of the cave. He caught his weapon and he dragged that guy out of the cave. And he overpowered him psychologically. That guy was shooting at him. That's the kind of boy Sudhir Walia was. He died a month later, leading an attack on a militant hideout in which he got shot 4 times over. His jaw, his back. He got airlifted. On his way, he wrote a letter to his mother. When I visited his home, she hadn't opened that letter. She said, "I don't have the courage to open it." It was about 10 years after he had died that I visited his home. The last letter to his mother. Price of altitude. So, like I said, it's not how high can we go, it's what are we willing to sacrifice to get there. That's what you sacrifice to get there. That's Sudhir Walia being brought home. That is Kargil, 527 tombstones. And I'm not talking about people who are invalidated, injured. That's the price you pay. That's Sudhir Walia after the capture of the Zulu Top. That's one of the militants that I had shot. That's the book. That's me. I have finished. Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure talking to you. Anything?
I would call upon our CEO, Vikram Kharvi, for a fireside chat with Colonel Sir.
Yeah? Okay.
कर्नल साहब आपने क्या कर दिया? हमने आपको बुलाया था वॉर, डिसिप्लिन, ये सब की बातें कर आपने क्राइसिस कम्युनिकेशन पीआर के ऊपर ऐसा कुछ बोल दिया that I don't think even a seasoned PR professional will be able to, teach us today. What a great learning, seriously. I have few questions because, the room has gone so cold.
The aim was not to kind of put you into today is the day of celebration, but I'm sorry, the subject was
No.
such, I had to kind
No,
of drive it
seriously.
home. You've called the devil into the room, so
They already had one devil already. Yeah. So I just want to ask you, you commanded a battalion at Siachen, and then you also led a team as a CEO at Imagicaa at a theme park. What is exactly the same thing at both ends?
I've got this. So the teams don't follow a plan. The teams follow the leader. Your mindset is the climate of the team. You panic, the team panics. You flutter, the team flutters. You show courage, the team rises. That's what is common. Presence, like I said, leadership, those principles just don't change. Those remain the same. And I think that is what is true for all businesses. I've seen both sides of the divide now. I've been on the corporate side, I've been seen the other life. But I think most of us, where businesses fail is because we fail to develop leadership. We don't know what leadership is all about. Skill set and leadership are totally two different things. Leadership needs to be nurtured and developed. I was reading the other day, there was someone saying that, the army trains a 21-year-old to lead 200 men into battle, and the corporate world can't teach a 35-year-old to lead a 10-member team. That's so true. Because you don't think of leadership, you think of everything else but leadership, and businesses are built on leadership.
Right. We've seen.
Sorry if I can just add a little more. There is this lovely quote, and I can't help thinking of Diana when I say this. There's a lovely quote by this gentleman called Joseph Conrad, who says that on board every ship is a man who alone is responsible for the honor, welfare, and the conduct of the ship and all those who sail in it. In terms of peril, he can turn to no man. He alone is responsible for the navigation, direction, and course of the ship. He is the captain. He is the ship.
Very true. Same lines, we've seen people like, you have seen people like Major Sudhir Walia, Captain Vikram Batra. All of these guys are trained in the same institute. They're trained in the same manner, exactly like same. But only few of them become hero. Only few of them achieve those heights that, many look up to. Why is that? So why everybody can't be a hero, and why everybody can't really go and achieve those greater heights?
No, so actually that's not entirely true, because army is all about teamwork. It's not about individual. Behind Sudhir Walia or behind Vikram Batra, there were 100 other men. It's just that you don't know their names. Like they say, men apart, every man a king. That's the slogan of the paratroopers. So every one of them have it in them. These stories have stood out. But yes, maybe they took a step more than the others. I think it all comes from what you feel about the mission and what you feel about the duty. And, there is something, there is a perplexity, there is something so different where when I was writing my book and I spoke to some of these guys, some of the men who were with Sudhir Walia, who had done the most exceptional things in life. And when I asked them, how did you do it? And they were so simple about it. And they said, anyone could have done it. We were just there in the right place and the right time. I mean, they didn't have any bravado. They were not looking for recognition. They just did their job. The instinct to survive gives way to a feeling of duty to serve. You know, that is a fundamental instinct that all humans have. And somewhere it kind of flips in their mind and they decide that probably death will serve a greater purpose for the mission than their life. And when I know about 18 Grenadiers, I know about my own battalion which got the Paramveer Chakra in the 1971 war. When you talk to people who've been in these situations, I mean, each one of them goes through that tempering and through that fire, and I think each one of them could have been a Sudhir Walia or a Vikram Batra. It's just that someone got the opportunity and someone didn't, or someone took that extra step or someone didn't. But each of them are heroes.
So what I hear is that one extra step that you take more.
And an opportunity.
Yes, and an opportunity. Yes. Colonel, you worked with trained men in army. They were trained to follow orders. They were disciplined. Then you joined Imagicaa, a theme park. What changed then? You know, you must have come with, your training was probably training people who were already trained and they knew what orders meant. But when you come at the corporate side, each individual follows his own orders. So how do you train people and Gen Zs?
So I had the advantage of being an instructor in IMA, and we turned boys into men there, Gen Zs into young officers. So I used the same principles that I did when I was in IMA. You know, you walk the talk. Every afternoon I would walk around the park and keep a hand on someone's shoulder and spend half an hour with him and get to know him beyond his employee number and talk to him on what he was doing and what his aspirations in life were and what he wanted to do and how was he doing his job and what's the problem that he was facing. And I don't want to boast, but I can tell you one thing. We had about 600 young boys and girls over there, all from rural backgrounds. And the fervor that was there in that park at any given time when you walked was to be felt. Because they owned the park. The park was not owned by Ad Labs or Mr. Shetty or by any of us. It was that boy on the machine, the boy who was the attendant who owned the park. That was the kind of pride that they had in it. And it was all the same generation. It was all the same kind of people, the same age group. I remember an instance where, there's a village called Pali, a little kilometers down the line. And there was this girl whose marriage proposal had come. And you know how it is in rural areas and in Maharashtra, the boy is always, on a horse and the girl is there. And this father came and told me this, and he said that when this proposal came, so he tells the bridegroom, and he said it in Marathi, he said, "Tumhala mahiti hai, माझी मुलगी Imagicaa मध्ये काम करते." That my daughter works in Imagicaa, she's not some side riff that you will come and marry. That's the kind of pride the families had. That comes from involvement. So I think anything can be turned. If the army can turn rogues into men who can lead men into battle and into death, I think that's the ultimate test. And it just proves, it's the litmus test. It just proves that you can turn anything around if you want to.
Thank you, Colonel. I always wanted to join defense. In fact, I did my 3-year NCC, Naval NCC, and that's the time, I was, my life changed completely. The discipline that 3 years gave me, I still follow, and that's the reason the hair is so short.
I hope you're not running them like a unit, no?
No, I wish I could. That's the reason the hair is so short. Now I wish I could have hair like this. But yeah, so Army has always been so close. And when I heard you that day he was speaking at one of the restaurants. There's this new thing called lecture at the pub, and I often go to hear this lecture. And when I heard him, that day I decided. I think it's 6 months back.
Yeah.
So that day I decided that I'll have him here to speak to you guys. And today I actually have him here. I'm so happy. Thank you, Colonel, for joining us here. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Been a pleasure.